Hello, my name is Jeremy, this is Red Beans Recording, and today we are looking at the Roland TR-6S. We're going to be doing a walkthrough of the features, patterns, tones, all that kind of stuff, interspersed with some performances that I've recorded from patterns that I've made over the last few days. I will be putting bookmarks in the video description for the different sections as we talk about things, try to keep this concise, so feel free to jump around if you are curious about a specific thing. So what is the TR-6S? Well, I already said it's a 6-channel baby version of the TR-8S, which is an XOX style drum machine with sampling effects and tonal sort of sounds in it. So you can get pretty diverse kits. Hi, this is Future Jeremy. I need to pause the video to let you know that I forgot to mention this thing runs on batteries. Yeah, it can run on batteries or USB power bricks, I assume. Pretty dope. Anyways, let's get back to the video. Sequencing is super simple. You press the steps related to where you want the thing to be, and it plays there. It comes with a whole bunch of classic kits, 909s, 808s, 606s, etc., etc. And then there's some really interesting kits that pull from the bank of sounds that are involved. So the sequencer is really, really simple. You do have the ability to do things like substeps. So that is a sort of ratchet. I'm on the closed hi-hat right now. I'm on TR record mode, which means I'm going to be able to, affect things here on the thing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit sub, and you can see up here now that I have a sub-step amount. This is the division of the step. So we can do everything from 30-second notes to flams. So that's cool. Each track can have a different length. So if I go into my shift last, I can pick a thing and choose for it to have a different last amount. So that's going to be the last step now. So you can create evolving non-4/4 patterns if you want, which is great for techno and, just creating diversity. In this mode, you also have the ability to do some performance stuff. So let's go ahead and exit this mode and hit step loop and play. So you can step loop any individual step that's going on, which is really, really cool. It does have shuffle, very, very easy to attain here. So let's go ahead and listen to that. You want to add some groove to your shit. Tracks can be turned down and turned up via these sliders. You can also mute individual tracks. Each track has a built-in controls for tune and decay, and then an assignable control for pretty much any of the parameters that you can adjust within the tone, and I'll show off how that works later. You also have master effects. In this mode, it will become reverb and delay send, and also an assignable control here for the overall master effect. Right now it's set to a DJ style low pass, high pass filter. And you can hear that I've added some reverb and delay to the whole thing. Each one of these voices can be sent to the reverb and delay in different amounts. So if you don't want like reverb and delay on your kick drum, you can do that. Pattern chaining can happen, and you can also create sort of fill-in variations. So let me create a variation on this pattern, and then we will sort of show off the fills and how that works. So down here, you can see it has variation A through H. And if I press the variation button, I can choose one of these variations. Think of these as sub-patterns within the main pattern. So you can, create variations on the pattern. You can manually move through those, and you can also tell the TR-6S to cycle through them in various ways. And if you press multiple ones, it will play through them in a loop. So you can variation chain or pattern chain. So that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and make a couple variations of this, and I'll show off a little bit of how that works. So I'm going to copy variation. We're on A right now, so let's go ahead and copy this over to B. All right, let's repeat that a couple times so we have 4 variations. Great. So now if I hit variation and I go over to B, we'll be able to edit this variation. Let's go over to variation C. And then variation D. Just make this really obvious. Okay, cool. So if I hit variation now and I go A, B, C, D, it will now cycle through those. So that's cool. So there's other ways to sort of have this work out for you, and that's the fill-in trig right here. So I'm going to turn off variation cycling and just go to A. Cool. So now if I go to fill-in trig, if I just press this, it's going to do whatever the assigned fill behavior is. And in this case, I believe it's assigned to scatter, which is a sort of glitch effect. And you can see that after it gets to the end of the pattern, that glitch effect stops. It knows where the end of the pattern is, and it considers it a fill, which is how it should work, right? So if I hit Shift Fill and adjust the settings here, I have the ability to have this sort of cycle for me and do these things, which is really, really cool. So right now you can see this is set to off. Let's go ahead and set it to on. And let's go over and make this real obvious. So cycle. How many times will this pattern repeat these 16 steps before it does the next thing? So let's go ahead and make this real obvious. Let's set it to 2. So every single time this plays, it'll play the fill. And then let's go over here and select what we want the fill-in to be. So right now you can see it's set to scatter, but I can click on this and I can have it go to fills. I can have it go to a different variation. So let's do that and listen to what that sounds like. So that's pretty cool. If I had this set to scatter, I could set this to 4, and then every single time I got to the end of a 4-bar phrase, it would scatter for me. So nice ways to interact with it and create longer phrases, and pretty easy to sort of get, phrase variation and stuff like that going on, which is really, really nice. You can adjust the scatter settings to be like anything from that to super, super glitchy. And yeah, it's pretty dope. You can record motion to this. So let's go ahead and turn off our cycle and go back to using all 4 of these variations in tandem with each other. Let's focus on our friend Low Tom here. I'm going to go to instrument record mode as opposed to TR-rec mode. Instrument record. Now, anything that I touch here will be recorded as a motion lane. So let's go ahead and play around with the tom here, since it's the most obvious of the stuff we have. Now, in order to get that to play back, I have to go into Shift Motion and make sure that motion is set to on. easy to create motion and record it to a thing, and easy to clear it too. If you hit shift motion, eventually you'll get to erase motion, and you can pick all kinds of things to erase directly, including stuff on a specific variation or anything revolving the delay and reverb and stuff like that, and the master control, which we talked about having a master effect on it. So now that you've seen the basics of creating a pattern and adding motion to that pattern and moving through the variations and creating that kind of chaining stuff, let's talk about the sound engine itself, which is actually pretty cool. Let's jump into that part.
But first, a performance.
I do want to point out that Roland made the last preset kit number 68, so that means your first preset kit is going to be number 69. Nice. So now we have a blank pattern and a blank kit, and we need to start picking some stuff to add to this. So we'll make sure we're in TR-rec mode, which is going to give us the ability to, just press things down here and, select one of your instruments. You can choose a full kit from this if you want. But you can also choose an instrument, which is sort of a set of pre-mapped stuff, and you can save your own instrument, which is really, really useful. But you can also just go down to like a raw sample as well. So it's like sample, instrument, and then those are bundled into a kit. So in this case, let's start with some raw samples. My user samples start at the beginning. You can see sample user. I have imported some of this stuff. I wish there was an easy way to preview a sample. As far as I know, there's no nice way to do that. Like maybe if you could, push down on value or something like that to preview the sample, that'd be really, really useful. Though I suppose I can go into Shift Instrument Play down here. And now each one of these will play one of the pads. So that's an easy way to preview it, I guess. That's a workaround. So you can see it comes with a lot of the classics. And then we get into some interesting ones that involve like the FM engine and stuff like that. So if it says F, it's FM engine, and we get control over like morph and stuff like that. So you know how they just added the FM engine stuff to the TR-6S, which is really, really dope. There's a sort of stripped down version of it in here as well. I kind of like that kick clicker. So let's go over to our snare drum and add something there. That's kind of cool. How about our low tom? Let's add something weird to this. If we go further in, we're going to get to, there's a lot of samples on here, by the way. Like if you're just looking to use this as sort of a classic TR drum machine, then you're set. Great little form factor. And it's super chill to get out of that. But you can hear that we even have like a stereo thing going on. This thing will accept stereo samples, which is great. So if we go further and further and further, we start getting into weirder stuff, and we're going to focus on some of that weirder stuff for the end of this kit.
Check.
Sure, why not?
Check.
All right, so Once we have these in here, we can jump into editing things regarding the kit, and we can adjust into things regarding editing the instruments themselves. So let's talk about kit editing first. Once you hit Shift Kit to edit, we have things like level. We have the control over the reverb here now. So the default is a hall reverb. There are a few reverb types in here that you can pick from, including plate, mod, and room, and ambience, which is nice. We'll leave that on default for right now. This is also where you play with a delay. So there's multiple delay modes. This is a standard tap delay. There's a pan delay, so it ping-pongs. There is a tape echo as well. I think we're going to use the pan one on this, and let's make sure our tempo sync is on and that we are at a good amount for this. And I think the quarter note, the dotted quarter note, was good for this pan delay. Feedback, we'll drop that a bit. Let's see, what else do we have? You have control over the frequency of the delay response. You can also send the delay to the reverb, which is really, really nice. Here's your master effect. There are a whole bunch of effects built into this thing that you can apply one to the master and then one to each one of these individually, which is really, really cool. And each one of these has its own set of controls once you pick it. So let's go ahead and go with that low pass filter, high pass filter. And now you can see that it says control right here, depth. There is a universal LFO. We're going to go ahead and turn this to saw. And let's go ahead and make sure tempo sync is on. And let's go ahead and make this a little faster so that we'll be able to hear it. Let's make it 6 steps, and we'll use this on some of our things later. This mute section means that when one of these plays, it will mute another one. So if I want the bass drum to mute the snare drum every single time they play together, I can do that. This is useful for creating closed and open hi-hat groups. This is a really, really important thing right here. Kit control selects. Here you can choose what the individual thing here does on its control knob. So like I said earlier, like in Master Effects mode, this controls the master effect. But when you're in individual instrument mode, this controls a assignable parameter. When you're making your own kits from scratch, you will need to go turn this on to one of the options here. You know, you have sends, you have the individual instruments effect sort of depth. I usually put it on user, and then I am able to select for each one what that knob is going to do. And we'll talk about a bit more when we go into instrument editing. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a kick drum pattern and snare pattern and talk a little bit about instrument editing.
But first, a performance.
Okay, this pattern is now using the kick drum, the snare drum, and the hand clap that we picked, which is actually sort of that little donk sound. So let's go into our donk sound right here and go into Shift Instrument and talk about some of the stuff that we have here. So you have, when you're playing, tune, decay, But obviously in the instrument edit, you can adjust that tune here as well. Decay. Morph. This is something that's specific to the things that use the FM engine. So let's show what it means to assign that to a knob. So if I go back into Kit Edit and I go over to my HC, womp, womp, and I change this to Morph. Now I have control over that morph from here. And of course, that means it can also be motion recorded, which is really, really useful. FM course. Since this is an FM drum, you get control over some of the FM aspects. You can pan. Shift will make things go faster, as it should. So reverb and send and delay. This is where you choose, when you do turn up the reverb, send, and delay for the whole kit, what is sent there. So let's go ahead and go into our master effects, turn these up. You can hear right now that pretty much everything is getting sent to the reverb and delay. So let's go into our kick. The nice thing about this is no matter which one you choose, when you're in an instrument edit menu, you do just get sent right to that parameter, which is really, really helpful for editing. Reverb send. Let's turn this down on our kick drum. Let's turn this, we'll leave it on our snare. Here's our LFO. So remember how we set up that LFO previously? The master LFO, there's one LFO for the whole kit. Here you can assign it to various parameters of an individual instrument. So let's try that out. Let's go ahead and turn the depth up here. Not gonna lie, that's actually pretty dope. It has a number of destinations. We did tune as the default, decay, the level, the pan, the reverb send, delay send, the morph parameter, which probably sounds pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty dope actually, but I like tune better. These are going to be a little different depending on whether or not this is just a sample-based one or it is FM-based one. So just keep that in mind. Here's the master effect. So let's go ahead through some of these effects and see what's going on with it. A high-pass filter, a low-pass filter, same kind of Pioneer style filter that we have up here. High boost, low high boost, isolator, compressor, transient, drive, bit crusher. Now, as we're going to see, depending on what type of instrument it is, what type of engine is feeding it, we have some extra options down the line. So we actually have bit crush on some of our other stuff. So let's go check that out real quick. We're going to leave the effect off on this. Let's go over to this sort of pad sound thing. Go into our instrument edit. Tune, decay, course tune. Spread. This is really cool. You can introduce this sort of false stereo chorus spread to some of your sounds. Which is dope. Bit crusher. So, each voice has a filter built into it. In this case, we have it set to low pass. Let's go ahead and turn this down. And let's go over to resonance. Turn it up. There's a filter envelope too. Pretty dope, right? Also, we can go over to LFO and set this to filter cutoff. I'll be first to admit, I'm not a huge fan of the amount of menu diving it takes to get into each individual voice and do all this stuff. But after having spent a couple days with this and sort of like spending time with it, I did find myself getting faster and faster. And once you know where things are in the menus and know what's available to you to edit, you start to get a better sense of sort of the possibilities and the limitations. This is not going to be a digitact. Like, it's just not. I tried to make it a digitact in terms of how I have been doing this stuff with it, but it just does not present in the same way. What it is very fast and fun and immediate, and a less intimidating way than something like the digitact, which is cool. We currently don't have any effects on this. Let's go ahead and add an effect. All right, so those are the parameters and things that you can play with when it comes to building your own kits and making instruments from various samples. Let's talk about user samples real quick. This thing has an SD card in the back. It can load user samples. It's not picky about sample type either, which is really, really great. So a lot of samplers, you'll need to format things to a particular sample rate, and they'll have to be like a certain bit rate, and sometimes they can't be stereo, and sometimes they can't be mono. This thing doesn't care. It'll take it all. But it will limit your amount of sample memory available with stereo high bit rate samples. So keep that in mind. The way that it approaches loading samples is not my favorite thing. It's okay for something like this, and once I understood what was going on, it was all right, but it's not great. So I'm going to go over to create a new kit here and a new pattern. And I'm going to go into utility, and I'm going to go over to sample import. All right, so you can import an individual sample, or you can import a folder of samples. And keep in mind, the sample memory is kind of limited, so you're going to want to make like kits, basically. You're going to want to make little kits for your samples. So here's a kit of like house samples that I made. I'm going to go ahead and import it, and we'll see how long it takes and see if it fails because I've already loaded a bunch of stuff on here. Hey, look, it actually loaded everything. That's wonderful. All right, so let's load some samples up. Instead of going into instrument, I'm going to go into sample. And as I turn this, I will start getting my user samples first. So these are like the raw samples that you can pull from and that are pulled from for all the instruments. There's a ton of stuff on here, both tonal and drum, which is really good. All right, so let's talk about longer samples. This is a 122 BPM drum beat. I'm going to go into TR rec mode, put down the trigger, and you're going to hear it fade out. So first thing we need to do is adjust our tempo to 122. Now, I can turn up the decay for this, but I think what I want to do for this is go into instrument, and I want to go into that hold thing. So hold mode, step, hold step. Let's go for 32, and I'll explain why in a second. Cool. So now we have a full loop loaded over there, and it will continue to play for 32 steps, which is, it is what it is. We want that, though, in order to be able to use variations properly. So I'm going to go into Shift Instrument Play again, and we're going to load something onto this. That's cool. It's a nice bass. Let's go ahead and add that. Hell yeah. So now what we're going to do is we are going to copy this variation over to variation B. Remember, we have variations A through H here, and we're going to have it auto cycle between those two. So we'll get a longer pattern. So by removing the triggers from variation B, it allows the ones with a 32 step or 64 step or whatever you want hold time to continue playing through. That's one way you can get around some of the limitations of it if you want to use longer samples. And that is pretty much it. There is some more stuff under the hood here that I'm not really interested in getting into, just because I really want to kind of show off the basics of how it works, how you make sounds, how you get sounds in here, and some of the performance aspects of it. We'll be playing one more outro piece, I believe, and let me know in the comments what you think of this thing. And yeah, thanks for watching. My name is Jeremy. This is Red Means Recording, and I hope you have a pretty wonderful day. Bye.